the whole reason for doing this is one, a challenge, two, to create enough financial security for freedom.
Right.
And like an excess amount. So it's not even like you're on the bubble. And if one little, you see like the retirement plans, right? Where it's like somebody gets to 65 and, they make 5% a year and they withdraw 3%. And it's like, if your first 3 years are bear markets, you're not going to have money in 10 years.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and I'm so pleased to be here on this wonderful day. Wherever you guys are, I hope you're enjoying the day, and I certainly am, and excited to be here recording podcasts once again. And today we have an incredible guest. We got Chris Grenzig. What's going on, my friend? How you doing?
I'm doing really, really good. I appreciate you having me on.
Great. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Awesome to have you on. Chris is, just so you guys have a little context, who he is. He's a multifamily investor. He's got a great background. After leaving a company, he helped scale Toro Investments with John Cohen. We were on your podcast a while back, and I just mixed up your names once again. But you guys did an incredible job with that, and you went off a little over a year ago to found your own company down in Jacksonville, JAG Communities. So I'd love to tell us a little bit about. You see, I'm a little rusty with the recording.
It's all right. I know, John and I look almost exactly the same, so I could see why you would mix us up. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't realize, John is, bald and I am not. So, but yeah, so like you stated, I'm from New York, born and raised Long Island, kind of got lucky, got into real estate through my mom and my cousin. I was working another job and then hated it and was looking for a way out. They bought a flipping course. This asked me to tag along January 2016. And I knew legit nothing about real estate. I had rented a house once and I had lived in one growing up, and that was the extent of my knowledge. The example I like to give was one of the first houses we walked in that course. They were talking about asbestos, and I thought they were talking about the mold on the ceiling. So I didn't even know what that was. So tried flipping, nights and weekends for several months, failed, decided we were going to explore other options for various reasons. We looked at doing flipping out of state. We looked at doing tax deeds, and then met John Cohen through his cousin, and he had transitioned out of the tax deeds into multifamily stuff. And he was in the process of transitioning from smaller multifamily to larger multifamily with Toro. Mm-hmm. So we met John during that transition. And before I joined Toro, me, my mom, my cousin, him partnered on a few smaller deals, just helping him out with some stuff, learning the ropes. And just by sitting down with him one day, just got the great opportunity to go over and join Toro as a, full-time job, basically. They offered me like a 3-month trial to start, for pennies, basically. But the opportunity to go over, see how it works, see if they really need some help, and also learn. And 3 months turned into 4.5 years roughly. And it also turned into me kind of leading all the Florida operations that we had. So when I was there, we acquired 4,000 units, 23 properties. We went full cycle on 7. It was all, I think our acquisition pricing was like $300 million or something. And in Florida, we did 1,000 units, 7 properties, about $60 million in acquisitions. And we went full cycle on 2. After I left, they went full cycle on a 3rd, but be that as it may. So got a ton of experience. COVID hit March 2020, February 2020, whatever it was. Kind of everybody in the multifamily space thought the world was ending. Right. We thought collections were going to go to 50% or 0 or something. And me, I was kind of fortunate in a way that we had done a ton of business. I had a decent amount of cash that I just come into. And I was like, this is a great buying opportunity. I thought this was going to be 2008 reincarnated. I was like, I've got cash. Went to my family and said, hey, I think there's a possibility this turns into a really good time to buy. Do you guys have any interest? I said, we'll buy something for 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, buy it in cash, renovate it. And then once kind of, the dust settles, we can kind of explore our options from there.
Right.
They said, sure. And we started looking, and, the sky didn't really fall in the multifamily world. So kind of scrapped that plan a little bit, but kept looking, and fortunately was able to come across a 16 unit deal in Jacksonville, right around the corner from a deal Toro had bought that I brought to the table. So basically like a carbon copy of that deal, around the corner, same submarket, same floor plans, almost the same year built. So it was like kind of rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting it for cheaper than what we bought the other one for. So kind of a no-brainer from that standpoint, and put it under contract, put it out there on social media and my network, and just had dozens of people reach out and be like, hey, what does this mean? Are you leaving? What's going on? Even John asked me too. And even though I told him I was looking for deals, he still asked me like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like I'm not leaving, like, just kind of buying a deal, doing a thing. And they're like, okay. But then just kind of, enough people hit me over the head, and I started thinking about it. I was like, maybe they see something I don't like. Let's kind of explore what it would mean if this was, leaving. And kind of as I thought about it more, I had always wanted to try other aspects of it because I felt like it would make me a better owner, a better operator of deals, property management, construction, et cetera.
Sure. Running the whole deal.
Said, exactly.
You were mainly doing like acquisitions before, right?
Exactly. Acquisitions, asset management,
Right.
From, thousands of miles away,
right.
Checking in on it once every couple months, you don't really know what's going on. So I was like, I kind of just thought about it. So what's the worst that can happen if we go down? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mess it up, and we get another property manager in, and I go find another job. So I said, all right, let's go do it. I didn't want to be 80 years old and regret it. So closed on that November 2020, told John and Don I was going to go off my own, and they were awesome about it. They were super supportive, super understanding, really, really great about it, which made it a heck of a lot easier.
Right.
And packed my car and drove down and opened up JAG and started renovations on that project, started property management, closing our second deal in February 2021, which is probably quicker than I would have liked, but it was just an opportunity we couldn't pass up. Also hired my first two people then. I inherited a property manager and a maintenance supervisor. Got my feet kind of underneath me on the operations side, and then we just closed on our third property a couple of weeks ago, so January of 2022. And then we have two more projects under contract right now, an existing 12-unit deal, and then we have our first development deal, which will probably be somewhere between 20 and 40 townhomes, depending upon how the rezoning goes.
Nice. So these are all, you moved down to Jacksonville, and all of these properties are within that area, right?
Yep. Yeah. Orange Park is technically not in Jacksonville. It's technically in Clay County, but it's literally a 5-minute drive to Jacksonville, and it's part of the Jacksonville MSA. So,
right. No, that's awesome. And it really helps, obviously. Have you seen a big difference in terms of, you went in kind of blindly thinking, well, I'll probably learn a lot by being on the ground, right? Boots on the ground, and actually being involved in the, day-to-day process. Like how much have you learned? I'm just like curious, like, right?
I've probably learned more than I don't want to say I've learned more than I've learned in my whole time at Toro, but I've learned probably as much as I learned in a year or so as I have in 4 years there. Just, understanding exactly how all the plumbing works and the different types of electrical. And I'm still learning, right? Like, met with the electrician the other day, and, I knew we had to watch out for Federal Pacific panels, but he thought it was another one. He's like, oh, there's actually 3 more you really need to watch out for. And he said Federal Pacific is the most common, but, you still got to watch out for these ones. So it's like, I'm just constantly, learning as we're doing stuff. And it's the stuff that, we leaned on our property managers for, and we leaned on our general contractors for. But it's tough to call BS on somebody when you don't know it yourself. So now that I'm in there and learning the weeds, it's, learning how day-to-day operations work. It's learning about how to manage people in it, understanding about what happens with the construction stuff. And going through it with all the supply chain issues we have has been fun and challenging, I'll say.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's been an amazing learning experience. And to be able to do it on a deal I own and I'm a part of, was really nice too, because I have a huge incentive to, to learn and to do it right and, do what needs to be done. So, and that was the whole purpose of, those first 2 deals. Neither of those 2 deals really had investors in them. It was just, a close family member on each in a JV and my own money. And it really was taking the time to really get down there, understand what's going on, kind of get my feet wet and some sort of foundation underneath me before going out to people and be like, hey, haven't really done this quite yet from a day-to-day perspective, but give me your money and trust me type of thing. So now there's a little bit more substance behind, hey, give me your money and trust me.
Yeah. I mean, you spent years growing a portfolio, albeit for someone else, but you had a lot of experience doing that, right? And finding
Sure.
deals and managing, asset managing and everything like that. So you're not coming from scratch, right? It's much different.
Of course. Right. But, doing having the systems in place, being able to take over property and close on it. There's still stuff, even in the takeover we just did for the first deal we, really raised money for. I mean, there's, still stuff we missed on the takeover, and you get it done after the fact, and it's not the end of the world. It wasn't anything major by any means and won't affect the dealer and the investors at all, but it's still, little things like that, you've got to pick up and learn and add to your,
right.
Your plans and processes and stuff like that. So, having done it now, 2 times prior, and then, the buildings haven't fallen apart and the world hasn't turned upside down for us involved, does give a little bit more confidence of, being the one running the
of course,
day to day.
Probably once, the renovations are completed and you refinance and you're able to pull out money, you can show that track record more. But I mean, building a company, which is essentially what you're doing from the ground up. I mean, from one property to 2 to 3 to 4, just one at a time, building that and, slowly bringing on more team members will help you, will help your credibility, will help that company. And what is the ultimate goal with this JAG Communities project that you undertook?
Yeah. I mean, I came up with a 10-year plan. So our 10-year mark is to have 500 million in deals currently under management. So with buying and selling deals and a little bit of cushion, I think it's like acquiring north of 600 million over 10 years. Well, the goal is to have 5 to 8 million annual revenue and employ somewhere between 60 and 90 people. That may go up as I'm exploring bringing in a renovation team in-house, which I would really like to do now because I'm tired of dealing with subcontractors and contractors and stuff, especially for stuff that I think is super basic. But a whole other conversation, or we can go down the rabbit hole, whatever you want. But yeah, I mean, the whole reason for doing this is 1, a challenge, 2, to create enough financial security for freedom,
right? And
like an excess amount. So it's not even like you're on the bubble. And if one little, you see like the retirement plans, right? Where it's like somebody gets to 65 and, they make 5% a year and they withdraw 3. And it's like, if your first 3 years are bear markets, you're not going to have money in 10 years. But if you're, if they're bull markets, you'll be fine. So it's like, I don't want to be, is the stock market going to be a bear or a bull? And am I going to be okay? I want to be like, okay, no problem. We're good. And then, have, money to do things. And then the third one is I want to create a really awesome work environment. I know a lot of people that would work jobs and either hate it or didn't like it for one reason or another. And there was a few times when I was at Toro, over the 4.5 years where I thought about leaving and trying something else. And I never left because the major stuff, right? Flexibility, work environment, time off, stuff like that, they were awesome about. They were super, super great, ton of flexibility, ton of ownership, kind of take off whenever to a certain degree. And that was awesome. And I'd have friends that would bitch and moan, for lack of a better word, about, their work environment and stuff they're dealing with. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's things I would like different, right, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not that important. And I think being in a position to create that for other people is super motivating to me. And that's part of the challenge. So that's kind of the whole reason of, shooting for that and even higher in the future.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when can be your own leader and create an organization that from the ground up, if what other people like, what employees, what a real team looks like and what a team leader is supposed to act like, you can build that. And so, I mean, obviously acquiring $600 million in real estate over the next 10 years is not something you're going to be doing on your own, and is definitely going to require hiring, multiple people. And probably the more people we bring on, the faster you'll get there. I mean, I've seen a lot of amazing companies out there who started from scratch and, within a year or 2 or 3 have surpassed that amount. So obviously you have to be, there's only so much you can do within your limitations, but it's definitely possible, is what I mean. And so it's really about scaling, about having the right mindset and making sure that the game plan is going along with those original plans.
And that's, one of the things I'm battling now is trying to, look at money coming in and deal flow and how much I can physically do myself, and, who to hire next and how much to spend and what their responsibilities are. And what's going to end up being hopefully really nice is those first 2 deals, having a lot of capital in it myself, when we eventually refinance, pull money out and they kind of cash flow, the idea is that those will kind of serve as a base level just kind of for my personal stuff. And then anything within the business, we can just reinvest back into it and into future deals because, we co-invest in every deal. So it's kind of that, trying to set it up now so that way we have a nice platform to build on for the next 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you have that base already set up, you don't have to worry about that. You can scale a lot faster, right? Whether you have a large amount of capital to begin with, or you have that cash flow coming from properties or investments, that's probably the best way to go about doing it.
And what was really helpful too was, I don't know how I kind of thought or knew to do this. I don't know if I heard it on a podcast. I know there's a book about, like working backwards, and I haven't read it yet, but when I heard somebody talk about it, I was like, okay, that's basically what I did. But when I sat down and took like that 10-year metric and broke it down by year, it becomes way more achievable from that standpoint. So like, for us to hit 600 million acquired, you'd kind of be like, oh, well, you got to hit 60 million a year, right? No, it's, it was 5 million the first year, another 8 million the second year, 13 the next year. So kind of going anywhere from a 35 in the low end to a 65% year over year increase on what we acquire. 5 million is pretty doable. We did about the third property we closed put us at like 5.4 at like the 13-month mark. So a little late, but a little over. So works for me.
All right.
If we close these 2 deals, we'll be right around, depending upon where the development shakes out, we'll be right around that $8 million mark. So we might even meet our mark for the second year midway through, this year, which would be really nice, and it just kind of breaks it down and makes it way more manageable. So, I think that was huge, kind of coming down, really taking a hard look at like, what's the goal? How do we get there? Is this sustainable? Is this doable? Are we shooting too high, too low? Is this a good middle ground with a little bit of reach? So I don't know. Some days I feel like I may have undershot a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. But I mean, as the CEO, right, of a founder of the company, right, you got to know what you're looking for, right? You got to know what all those pieces are, right? And how you're going to get there, making the plan. But essentially, like you said, bringing on team members and having other people kind of help you to get there is really what's going to help the company grow. But on that note, is there anything that like, okay, this is one thing that I really love about the real estate business, and I could focus on this all day long. And then is there like anything that you really don't like about this? And you definitely just have to find someone who's really good at it.
Yeah. So it's funny because I know those two ends so well. So any acquisitions, deal finding, putting together, I don't know if I'll ever give up, or it'll be one of the last things I give up. Right. In my head, eventually it'll be some sort of like, if you're trying to buy $200 million worth of real estate, you're probably going to have some acquisitions people, maybe there's some sort of like investment committee or some process where it's like, hey, do you like this? Yes or no? But it'll probably be one of the last things I give up. The next things I'm going to take off my plate will be project management, staying on top of contractors. One, I just have next to no experience in the grand scheme of things. So I am not the best person for that job. I know that. I've done it enough now that I feel like I can oversee it and do a decent enough job, and or find somebody I think can do a decent enough job. But I know I'm not, the best person. I know, you talk about like, okay, if I'm doing the job, everyone's like, oh, I'm the best for it. So can I find somebody that can do it 80% as good? I know I'm at like 20, 30%. And I know I can find somebody that can do it better.
Right.
It's just figuring out exactly when, what time, et cetera.
Yeah. There's all kinds of softwares out there that can help with the project management aspect of things as well. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, now it's just more from I just don't have enough bandwidth to stay on top of it.
Of course.
I'm spending probably at least a third of my time, going out to sites, overseeing capital projects, because we're not doing, class A stuff where you're not coming in and we're spending anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000 a unit renovating these things, and they're big capital projects, and we're doing them pretty quick. We're doing them in 12 to 18 months, 24 months from one of them. So it's not like we're renovating 50% of units over a 3-year period. We're doing 100% of units very quickly. Even though the projects are smaller, the deals are smaller, we are condensing a lot of work in a short period of time. And as we acquire, we're consistently doing that and consistently adding to it. Now, what is nice though, is our first 2 properties are getting close to being done. So those are coming down in how much we're doing, but we're also constantly acquiring. So that'll probably be the next one we offload. As we start to get a little bit more units and scale, we'll probably look at bringing in some sort of like a regional manager type of thing, kind of bridge the gap between an on-site manager, regional, and like a head of property management. That'll probably be the next one. And then I don't know, there's some other stuff in there, but yeah, I would say the acquisitions, deal finding, deal putting together side will be the last thing I probably do.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the great thing is that really, if you look around, there are so many successful people who have done this before you. So it's not like you got to reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly.
You really just can look at some of those other successful people, whether in your market or other markets, similar type projects, and just say, how can I take the best of this and the best of that? And so many people are transparent nowadays about what they're doing and the projects they're working on. It's probably easy to replicate.
I was very comfortable and confident. I don't think I was ever like, I don't know if I can make it in real estate. I was like, okay, there's a million people that have done this over hundreds of years. This has gone back way before technology. This has been a thing for so long in one format or another, even if there's a hot way to do it now, or, a hot asset or whatever. There's so many ways to be in and around this game that you can pivot and change and do something else. It's very easy to feel like I can do it because there's so many people that have done it. And there's a lot of smarter people than me that have done it, but there's also a lot of dumber people that have done it too. So, I just feel like if you just keep going and keep going along, and you don't over leverage your deals, you don't over leverage yourself, you don't try to take on too much in one shot, and you kind of really plan for the future and that stuff, that, it's more than doable.
Absolutely. Anything that besides for the JAG communities, it sounds like this is taking up a lot of your time. Anyone who's starting a project and dealing with on-site construction and all kinds of stuff like that, it's probably taking up a lot of your time. But is there anything else that you're working on, any other type of projects or any other hobbies or passions that got you going right now as well?
I am really interested in taking the buying of multifamily, which is essentially a business, and parlaying that into buying actual existing businesses over the next 2 to 4 years, and basically creating another arm of the company that, raises money and goes out and buys a business. And the first one I do, if I do it, will probably be no investors, but it's something I'm super interested in now, because I think you can do one of two things: find a complementary business like landscaping, plumbing, whatever.
Right. Construction.
Which is great because, I know a ton of people, I know a ton of owners. I have a decent brand already that I can parlay that into, existing business, new business, or whatever.
Right.
Or I also think about it as the inverse of finding something that's totally on the opposite side of the coin, so that if for whatever real estate is affected, whatever that other business is, hopefully is not. But I just think being in here, learning how to start a business, hopefully figuring it out and being good at it, and, really understanding how to build one that eventually parlays into buying one that's existing and then scaling it from there. And, probably not scaling it massively, but taking something from increasing your, it's not NOI for that. It's EBITDA 2-3x, which is much more doable than trying to take a real estate NOI 2-3x, because, real estate, you're capped, right? You've only got so much square footage. You can only rent it out for so much, no matter how much you renovate it. There's only so much you can do. A business, you have a way higher ceiling on how much more business you can generate. So that's something that I'm slowly looking into learning more about. Outside of that, play soccer a lot, try to go to the gym. I have a girlfriend I've been dating now for 10 months, and we live together, and that's been super great. And we hang out and have a good time. We got 2 dogs. So just really, enjoying the warmer weather in Florida than New York. But, for the most part, it's all really good.
Well, good for you. It sounds amazing. And just on the business front, buying businesses. I mean, traditionally, that's how a lot of, great successful entrepreneurs grow their wealth. Not real estate obviously is one of them, but it's also couples great with real estate, meaning if you have a successful business, you can take any capital or whatever capital and that you're making from that and dump it back into, real estate and buying more deals. So they can complement one another, even if they're totally opposite type of deals.
Exactly. The other thought process is if you buy a real estate deal for a 5 cap, you're basically saying it's a 20x multiple on NOI or EBITDA. A lot of businesses trade on a much better multiple from a cash flow standpoint, at least high level. I'm still learning. Right. So if I'm totally off base, I know when you buy a business, you got to add in, what's your assets you got to pay for, and then maybe they own real estate, so that can throw that off. But at least from the purely the business operational side, a lot of times you can get a better cash on cash return than you can for real estate.
Sure.
You might be making your money back in 2 or 3 years instead of 20 years. So I think that standpoint, it's also really nice where you can put money in, get a larger chunk of change back within the first year and redeploy that into a similar size asset where, if you put in, let's say you put in $1 million on a deal, you get back 5%, you're talking about, what's that, 50 grand. Well, it's going to take you a little while to buy another $1 million building or whatever. Right. So from that standpoint, I also think it makes a lot of sense. So just something I'm exploring. If anybody listening knows more about it and wants to educate me, please hit me up. I'm open to literally talking to anybody about it. So
awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea. There are plenty of people out there, I'm sure some of our listeners can recommend. So reach out. We'll make sure to put your contact information in the show notes. But let's transition to what I call the final four. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests. First question: what's the worst job that you ever had?
So I touched on it earlier. So as I was getting into real estate, I was a cold caller for a stock brokerage company, and then got licensed. And that job, both sides of that job were just terrible.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like anything to do with cold calling. I can't stand either. It's funny because, I saw literally on LinkedIn today, some guy just posted like, I love cold calling. And there's certain type of people that they're really just built for it. Right. Yeah. And the others, it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were doing like 500-600 calls a day, working 10 hours. And then also too, it's just not, when you're in the business of taking people's money, that was not a good side of that coin, to say the least. I was very unhappy at the job. I didn't like the physical work, and then just the mental, that's not even the right word for it, the like gut feeling side of it, like being okay with what it's even going on was not right. So I was looking for a way out, and as quickly as possible. So I was there for a little less than a year, I think.
All right. So let's talk about the next question, which is, what is a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Yeah. You warned me about this one. I still don't know if I have a good one. I'm not the world's biggest reader, especially in the business side. I will say, I think what probably helped me set up that whole 10-year stuff was, God, what the hell is it called? I'm blanking on it now. It's the whole one, E-Myth.
The E-Myth.
So probably E-Myth. And then I read Clockwork shortly after coming down here. And I think those two hand in hand just kind of really helped me understand what's really necessary. And about the whole thing with Clockwork was like building up to taking a 4-week vacation, not doing anything with the business whatsoever, even if there's a fire, right, or whatever. And that really made me think about like, okay, like, this has to work without me being there. And maybe it's not 4 weeks, because I don't think I could take a 4-week vacation and be away. Like I just like doing this stuff too much. And I feel like I might get bored for 4 weeks, but the concept is really intriguing. And I think it really made me think about things very differently.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. And that's really what it's all about, building a business, successful business that you can actually take a walk off. I mean, I personally can't imagine doing it. I take sometimes like a week off or 10 days off and then come back. And I'm just like, thank God I have a huge team that's working, doing a lot of the back work, but then I'm have like 1,000 emails to catch up on.
Exactly.
It's not possible. Third question: what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I guess I don't know if I have it or not yet, because I haven't started. I'm sure I'm not very good at it because I haven't done it a lot yet, but running meetings with a team and then one-on-one meetings, I'm sure I'm going to be terrible at it first. As we start building out the team and doing different things. So that is going to be a skill I know I'm going to have to focus on, learn more about, and really dial in on. So, I don't, sooner is always better than later, but, that's something I definitely do want to learn.
Yeah. Team building and just team interaction, especially when you're growing a team management. That's a lot of skill. You got Simon Sinek, a lot of great literature on that. So yeah, fourth and final question for you, Chris. What does success mean to you?
So kind of touched on it with the whole freedom thing. I think literally being able to wake up, and to a certain extent, right? You can't just do anything, but waking up and deciding to do kind of whatever it is I want to do that day. If that's work, if that's go on a trip, if that's lay in bed all day, if that's whatever, right? I mean, without going crazy, kind of being able to wake up and know that, hey, I can choose to do something different today, or I can choose to not do anything. I think that's a personal success. I think a business success would be having, I don't know what industry turnover is. I don't even know what a good metric is, but I think low turnover of staff would be, and I don't have that really dialed in, but just that high level, a low turnover, whatever that ends up being, would show success for me.
Yeah. Having happy employees, having a happy team and keeping them there and keeping them happy. That's definitely good. Positive environment. I'm sure you'll get there. I'm looking forward to watching the journey as you continue taking off, and let our listeners know how they can reach out to you or what's the best way they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. So if anybody is interested in investing in deals or learning more about them, still tweaking the website, so it's not up yet, but shoot me an email, chris@jag-communities.com. Just have any general inquiries, or you want to educate me on the business side of stuff in any form or function, or you just want to connect, email me there too. Or if social media is more your thing, Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the main two. Instagram is @Chris.Grenzig. LinkedIn is just Chris Grenzig. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time. It's been great to catch up and to see how you've been progressing, and looking forward to seeing where this takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And to our listeners, thanks again for joining us on this episode and listening all the way to the end. You're amazing. Thank you again. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.